Good morning, Washington, Baltimore. This is one of my Christmas presents yesterday. Um, a giant shark bank. You see, when people make donations to DCR TV and they send me their pennies, I stick them in here and then I can save them up. And when I get 100 pennies, I can take them over and deposit them to the bank for $1. So that was my Christmas present. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas. This is Dave TV for the 26th of December, 2013. And as we get close to the end of the year, I always start doing my end of the year lists. So I thought I would surprise you today with my latest end of the year list, the top 15 stories, local media stories of 2013. As we're listening to the gamut here, one of my favorite radio stations, the gamut, is try to find it. It's all over the dial, but it's hard to hear. That's what they should say. We're all over the dial, but we're hard to hear. It's on the HD3s of WTOP's 103.5 and 107.7 and 103.9 signals. You can hear it on AM 820, and if you're in the Leesburg, Loudoun County area, you can hear it on FM 104.3. But it's really cool, crazy mix of stuff. The gamut. Dave Colasar, listen to them. The gamut. I'm listening to them on 103.5's Boogie Oogie Oogie. They're just a crazy mix of stuff, just all over the place. They'll follow that with Frank Sinatra or something, and then they'll put some ministry on it. It's just bizarre. So anyhow, let's look at the top 15 stories of 2013, shall we? All right, this is local media stories. Okay, this was a weird year. I'll tell you that in the sense that there wasn't a lot of big media. There were like 2 or 3 huge media news stories, and then the rest of it was kind of like, there weren't any giant format flips or anything like that. But there were 1 or 2 really gigantic stories media-wise, and the rest of it was kind of averagey stuff. So it's kind of an odd year. So anyhow, let's look at the top 15 stories of 2013. Number 15, Dan Hellie, the top sportscaster, leaves NBC4 for Comcast Sportsnet in San Francisco. That's not that big of a story, but when a top sportscaster leaves the market, I think it's probably worth a mention. Number 14, now my pages are sticking together. Oh my God, pages are sticking together. The pages are sticking together. Oh, here's another cool thing I got as a Christmas present. Look at that. Bob Hope's, what does it say? Bob Hope's Christmas Party. Bob Hope's Christmas Party. Wow, it's got Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland and Bing Crosby. That's cool. We'll do that too one of these days. Anyhow, story number 14 this year. The big news stories of the year, media-wise, locally. Brian Bolter leaves Fox 5. I guess you could say the gradual decline and fall of Channel 5. Now, their ratings are, probably okay, but they've had a lot of shakeup in their news department this year. New general manager, new news director, a whole bunch of crazy things. But Brian, probably one of the top news anchors in the market, leaving just basically to do a restaurant. He runs a bunch of restaurants and wine bars and stuff like that, especially in the Annapolis area. So check those out. But Brian's leaving. Now, that was kind of a shocker. Number 13, the 13th most big story of the year. Michael Baisden loses his contract, gets kicked off the air all over the country, but including WHUR. He's one of the top radio personalities in the market at Afternoon Drive. And eventually we learned later in the year that after a whole long tryout of a whole bunch of other people, we got Frank Ski as his replacement. So that was the 13th biggest news story of the year for the Washington market. Media-wise, what is number 12? Caryn Mathes leaves WAMU. She built that station into a real powerhouse. Very few public radio news talkers dominate their market like WAMU with Bluegrass Country and their other channels and getting on the air at 105.5 there for Bluegrass Country and the top ratings for the station, challenging WTOP. We all thought that WNEW, that new CBS All Newser, that started 2 years ago would be a challenge to WTOP, the ratings leader, the all-newser, and it wasn't. It was WAMU. We were right there, nip and tuck with WTOP. Some weeks WNEW, I mean, no, excuse me, some weeks WTOP would be number one, and other weeks WAMU, back and forth and back and forth. Gave poor old Jim Farley a heartburn there, huh? But Caryn Mathes is leaving, going up to Seattle to head the public radio station up there. Story number 11 for this year. ZBA overtakes 98 Rock. A rock revolution there in Baltimore. We now have WZBA, classic rocker, as the top rock station in Baltimore, overtaking longtime leader 98 Rock WIYY. That's kind of wow. That's kind of like, wow, man. And then we have another related story for the 10th big story. Mickey Cucchiella leaves 98 Rock, just kind of burns himself out there as the a number of year morning man there. And Schlegel, the lock fortune guy, Schlegel replaces him. But that was interesting. Cucchiella, very well liked and a long time guy there. But that was in my humble opinion, the number 10 story of the year. Number 9, and a very sad one, happened right at the beginning of the year, back in early January of 2013. John Konrad dies. He built WGTS, Christian Contemporary 91.9, into a powerhouse of a station. Loved radio, and was a true, in this day and age where you have very little locally owned, locally programmed radio like that, GTS is a rarity, and a really cool guy. I always liked John, and he shall be missed. John Konrad tragically dies very young of pneumonia. Number 8, Elliott leaving for NYC. Now, Elliott's still going to be heard on DC 101 mornings, but this is rather profound. This guy's been on the air for a long time. DC 101 morning show, well loved on all that. Finally packing up his bags and leaving Rockville-based DC 101, heading to New York to do mornings on WOR, which is a righty talker with it's kind of Limbaugh and Sean Hannity on it. But he's going to be doing the morning show from WOR in New York. Now, Elliott's going back to where he came from. He used to work at Z100 in New York before he came down here to Washington. Well, gosh, what was it, 15, 16 years ago, something like that. But Elliott will be going back to New York, but he'll still be heard on DC 101. But the show just won't be the same if it won't be here in Washington, I don't think. Story number 7, the top 15 stories of 2013. Bob Ryan retires. Bob's been in the Washington market since the early 80s. Remember, he used to do the weather. He used to be up in Boston. Then he did the weather. Oh, gosh, he's been all over the place. I think he was on the Today Show, and then he and Willard switched places, and Willard was on Channel 4 doing the weather, and he went up to New York to do the weather on Today, and Bob Ryan came down here, but that was back in the early 70s. Bob's one of the nice radio. I think he's been one of the best weather forecasters. He doesn't overhype things like some of these other crazy goons do. But Bob, then worked at Channel 4. Then he went to Channel 7 for a couple years, and then finally retired from there over the summer. So you can still read him on the Capitol Weather Gang on the Washington Post. But Bob Ryan retirement there. That's our big 7 story on DCRTV's top 15 stories of 2013. What's number 6? Number 6 is the Washington Examiner pulls the plug. Major newspaper. A major newspaper. I guess you could put major in quotes. But, hey, I think it gave some much-needed competition to the stodgy old Washington Post. Feisty little paper, kind of right-wing loony, but I liked it. I picked it up at the Safeway whenever I could find it there. But they basically ended the local tab. The Washington Examiner is still in existence as a kind of Politico kind of thingy-dingy for Capitol Hill. But, we really needed an independent kind of a newspaper here in Washington that covered local news, and I thought they really spiked things up a little bit and kind of gave it a nice, it was fun for the couple years it was around, and it's a shame it's not here, and I think I know it didn't make any money, I guess, and so there it goes. So Mr. Anschutz, the Denver billionaire, couldn't throw a couple more bucks at it, huh? All right, anyhow, number 5. The many people that have left the Baltimore Sun in the past year, including Kevin Howard, at least a dozen people have taken buyouts and left the paper as the paper kind of shrinks and becomes more and more irrelevant as the Tribune Company ponders its sale. But anyhow, kind of gradually sinking Baltimore Sun. The fifth big story of the year. Number 4 for the year. Jim Farley retires from WTOP. Of course, it hasn't happened yet. It will happen on the 31st. But this man, brilliant guy, friendly guy, nice guy. Good guys finish first. And so Jim Farley, you're going out on TOP is at the top of its game. Great sounding station. Maybe a little too happy. But top ratings, top biller in the whole country. Brilliant job there for Jim Farley. Nothing but complete congratulations for Jim as he retires from WTOP. Be interesting to see how the station fares with him just on as a consultant for the next few years. Jim Farley leaving WTOP after, 20-ish years there, right? Story number 3 of the year. Dun, 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 dun. Jack Diamond gets fried. Fired. Jack Diamond is fried. Gets electrocuted at WRQX. Now, Jack Diamond gets fired from, basically, his ratings weren't quite where they were before. So they kind of said, Jack, it's time to go. They put Bert Weiss, his old friend there up from Atlanta, piping him in. And guess what? WRQX Mix 107's ratings plunged. They tanked. They went down. They went from like about 8th or 9th place to 23rd place. And they still haven't recovered. And the station is a shambles. And then they changed from Mix 107.3 to All the Hits 107.3. But Jack Diamond then got a job in Miami, and then he's gone missing from that. So who knows what Jack's up to? But anyhow, that's our number 3 story of the year. Jack Diamond. Another. We got Elliot gone. We got Michael Baisden gone. We got Nikki Cucchiella gone. A lot of changes on the morning shows of the Washington-Baltimore radio market. Number 2. Now, here are the 2 biggie stories of the year, as I said. 2 giant stories this year. Allbritton selling all of its TV stations, rather. Allbritton's been in the market for years and years and years. They bought Channel 7 back in the 70s and changed the calls to JLA for Joseph L. Allbritton. And now Robert, the son, after the dad died a year ago, Robert is selling the entire broadcast division off to, and it's Sinclair out of Baltimore. So that will be real interesting to see what happens there. But huge story there. And then the Politico, we've got the Politico. And then Allbritton now building up his internet empire by buying Capital New York, and rumors of him buying some other websites around the country. So he's changing gears, and he might move out of town altogether. Maybe they'll set up base up in New York. But this is a big one. Big story, huge, gigantic story for 2013. Allbritton selling WJLA News Channel 8 to Sinclair. And, putting a lot of his folks on a kind of a life raft to hell. Hey, folks, thanks for working for me all these years. I'm cutting you loose. And it looks like I wouldn't be surprised if Sinclair does make a lot of changes at Channel 7. Kai Jackson probably replaced Leon Harris there as a news anchor. Okay, number 8. It's no big deal. What's the big story of the year? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, right, yeah. Jeff Bezos buys the Washington Post. Okay, yeah. The continued decline and fall of the Washington Post. The Post is going down faster than we ever thought. And here's a guy, money bags. He's so filthy rich. It's cost him, a couple of bucks, relatively speaking, to buy the Washington Post. Hasn't really put his imprint on it yet. But nobody, I don't think anybody saw this coming. Back in, when was this, August or so? Or late August or whatever, that all of a sudden the Graham family, which has owned the Washington Post for decades and centuries and eons, is selling it. And I think it just kind of shows us how really fast the print business is going down the tubes, and how it's really difficult for a lot of these companies to make that same kind of money doing just web-only stuff. You can't sell the ads on the internet like you can sell in print, and your print is really cratering fast. Big story there. Bezos buys. That's the biggest story of the year, I think. Jeff Bezos buying, or Bezos, or Boozos. They always say, Dave, you're mispronouncing it. It's Bezos, it's Bezos, it's Bezos, it's Bezos, it's Bezos, it's Boozos, whatever. Buying the Washington Post. I really think that Mr. Jeff has some plans to run for public office someday. I wouldn't be surprised to see old Jeff maybe make a stab at running for president in 2016 as an independent, kind of like a Ross Perot or somebody like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's going through the back of his mind, some sort of big political ploy. But anyhow, Jeff buys the WAPO as the top story of the year. All right, folks, that's my Dave TV for the 26th of December. Book 'em, Dano.